We fight hard. We take the people. We be optimistic. And we gonna win games, bro.
All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Douglas Show. Victory Monday on the Warpath is in the house. Burgundy and Gold Report is in the house. Command the Mic Podcast is in the house. We've broken out all the stars to celebrate what George was a necessary and must-have win on Sunday. Tell me what your first initial thoughts are.
Absolutely. I think you said it best, right? It was absolutely needed to be done. Coming off a 3-game losing streak after a pretty embarrassing and hurtful loss going against the Bears, 0-4. We all expected to win that game. I was driving into the stadium and I was listening to radio coverage. It was like, how much are we going to win this game and how are we going to beat the Bears? How, there's a lot of arrogance going in, and losing that game really set us back. And honestly, it kind of recalibrated our vision for the year. So we had to have this win. If we didn't have this win, I honestly believe there would have been some talk about, potential firings on defense or readjustments or benching like that. So I think it definitely changed the trajectory for the short term for Washington. So big win for us.
Corey, what about you? This was one that redemption. I don't know that it was their best game, but they did enough to get a W on Sunday. What do you take away from that win?
Oh man, it was ugly, and I was excited that we got the one because 3 weeks of being in the desert, not having to eat anything to eat, a saltine cracker starts tasting good. Shout out to Eddie Murphy, right? That cracker starts tasting real good, and that victory cracker, I forgot what that wafer tasted like, and I thought that the class of 2021 stood up. Ben St. Jude's finally got his interception, and Jamin Davis I thought played a good game, and it was exciting, and kind of like what George said, we were counting our ducks last Thursday, and we got humbled real quickly from off the gate. So it was good to kind of get back into it, playing a team where we heard kind of like this is a well-coached team, and to be honest with you, they were carbon copies of what we do, and a lot of things. I think they kind of run the ball like we like to throw the ball. They'll run it. They'll do it to the point ad nauseum. So, and we took advantage of that. Wasn't pretty, but you know what? I'll take a patch eye and a pigeon toe any day of the week. As long as we win, bro.
Adam, he makes a good point. The two teams are very similar. Young quarterback. They've got basically young teams with not first time head coaches, because Ron's been around for a long time, but he's brought in guys that are kind of doing this for the first time. What did you see from that one? Two teams that kind of were heading in the same direction, and both teams needed wins.
Well, prior to the game, I wrote about how every team they play, if it was an A.J. Brown, if it was, anybody else from the top teams we've played, giving up a ton of yards, their number one weapons. And although Drake London went for over 100, to me, he wasn't the one that I was scared about. He's their complementary. It was Pitts and it was Bijan Robinson. And both of those guys, they really bottled up in the run game. Bijan Robinson, even in the passing game, because he had 43 yards receiving, but they had him under 90 yards total yards. Kyle Pitts, to me, I feel like he's one of the most dangerous, underrated guys in the league. I evaluated him coming in, and to me, they really held him in check, which I was surprised about. I thought he'd do a lot better. So, seeing the performance from the defense, the 3 turnovers, you're still seeing that bend, don't break mentality by Del Rio. He is bringing some pressure, that Cinco package with the 5-man front. I think we're going to see it again next week against the Giants, because I think they're going to try to get Saquon Barkley out. And I think you saw it's not going to work every week, but in these matchups with these run-heavy teams, I think it's really the best, package they can use. And look what Jamin Davis does in it. It frees him up, a sack and interception. So I think he's really coming into his own. So, take away from that game, if they can continue this consistency, with Jack Del Rio matching the intensity, he did it with Atlanta, they have a good chance to, make a run for the playoffs. But, there has to be some consistency here. And it was up and down, but I really like what I saw. I wanted to see a bounce back game from the defense, and we got it.
Adam, is that because other teams, the packages they were using didn't allow for Washington to get in that 52 look? Because I think we all kind of thought we'd see that, and I'm not sure we've seen it yet this year was, did they allow other teams to dictate what we ran? I'm not sure why it took so long to get into that thing.
Well, from what I'm hearing, for the most part, Del Rio likes to use it with, the run heavy 12 personnel teams when they're having those two tight ends out there. So he has a preference when he wants to run it. That's not to say, with the Eagles, Buffalo, other teams, that they weren't going two tight ends. So I think it is situational. The way he likes to use it. And that's what concerns me about Del Rio, because when you start to get into, the psychological aspect of him, matching the offensive coordinator, that concerns me, because he's a dinosaur. But it worked this week. Will it work against the Giants? I think you have better coaching. Although they've been struggling, the Giants are a well-coached team. And, Saquon Barkley, although Bijan Robinson is a hell of a player, I think he's going to be one of the best in this league for years to come. Right now, Barkley, he's a different cat that we got to try to bottle up. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that single package this coming week too.
I think Tyrod's an upgrade. I've been a big fan of his for a while, George. I think he's an upgrade over Daniel Jones.
It depends. Daniel Jones is pretty average across most people across the league, but for one reason or another, he has our number against us in DC. I'm more excited to see Tyrod Taylor than Daniel Jones this week, to be honest with you.
Corey, I put here on my notes from the game, I said, Logan Thomas, not good.
That's fine, because you know what? You got number 17 involved, and that is what 11 targets for was it 8 or 6 receptions there for 81 yards, and he was flowing. When they've got the juices flowing with him, and then Kurt Cole, which this is a man who looking like he's ready to get paid again. When you get those two going, I think it's okay if Logan doesn't show up as much, and we prove we can win. We can win if Logan isn't the feature of the offense, man. I thought that Terry, them getting them involved in them slants and everything, getting them over the middle, a lot of those crossing routes, that works, and that helps Sam build confidence, right? So I mean, my goodness, Logan, okay, if he takes a day off. And what the bigger concern I thought on my notes is, what happened to Jahan Dotson's hands?
I was just about to say,
like, what happened to his hands? They turned into bricks, man.
And that's interesting. I don't know. Let me kind of jump on that, Corey, and to the room. That's one thing that's interesting. I'm seeing the evolution of our offense. They're featuring Curtis Samuel the way Jahan Dotson was featured last year, right? Mm-hmm. They only gave Jahan Dotson 1 target last game. It's a big drop. And, I think he's one of the better route runners of the league. So I don't really know where it's going with this and what's happening with this. But, I don't know if Eric Bieniemy feels more comfortable with him. I like the way that Eric Bieniemy is using Curtis Samuel. That's how I imagine him to use it. I love that little touch pass where he does a little sweep right in front of it and they do a little touch pass. I think that's very effective. So I agree with you, Corey. It doesn't matter who scores the touchdowns as long as we score. But it is interesting to see what's going on with Jahan Dotson and why he's in a future part of the offense.
3 and 4 on my list were they forced Terry the ball. That's a good thing, and they've got to re-sign Samuel. I mean, I don't see, he's not going to. I don't think he's going to necessarily command top of the market.
I don't think so either.
Mm-mm.
But I think you can see what they like doing with them, and I think it's important to do that. Corey, I had brought up, or Adam, if you like, I had brought up Logan not just because they're not. I appreciate the fact that they've kind of switched the offense. We don't have Travis Kelce, but I don't think Logan has not looked healthy for a couple of years now. And I'm curious, Adam, if it's time to start focusing more on Turner.
I think they're going to try to ride. They love Thomas. They love what he can do. What he has, Turner. He's honestly, he's still got a lot to learn. I'm seeing some of the things he's doing on the field. I think he's rounding off some of his routes. So I think there's still some concern there about him as overall route runner. Obviously, as a blocker, he's not refined at all. So they want to see a lot more from that. I like him for the future, but honestly, the more I've already been watching college games, I think tight end has got to be, one of their top needs going into the draft, because I think they'll ride this out. Logan Thomas, his football IQ is what they love. I talk to Doc Walker, everyone I reach out to, trying to find out, what am I not seeing? Because I like him, he steps up, then he just disappears. And then, of course, durability. And they said it's his football IQ. He's got one of the highest out in the field, and he just makes them better when he's out there. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But, I think it's going to be time to look. It's time to look already. I think, if one injury to that tight end group, I think it's going to be an issue because Bates is not going to really help you that much in the passing game. I know you thought, we're hoping to see more from him. And Turner, again, I think he still needs time learning the Bieniemy's system. It's no easy feat. So I think, Turner, this is his second system in 2 years. So it's still going to be a learning curve. So to me, yeah, start looking now, because, we're an early season. I don't think you stop adding to your roster. I think, players become available. So I think you do definitely look.
I agree 100%. And yeah, Adam, you nailed it, man. I think you have to constantly reflect and add on to your team. But it's funny, like I'm looking at Logan Thomas. He had 1 target for 1 catch for 2 yards. He had a bad game. But generally speaking, I think Logan Thomas has kind of exceeded expectations, at least my expectations. I didn't really think he was like that strong of a tight end. I did want to upgrade in the draft. We're seeing Sam Laporta really thrive right now in the NFL, and I really liked him coming out as well. I do think it's very smart to invest in a tight end moving forward, but I think Thomas slowed it down. Like last game against Bears, he had 11 targets, 9 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. So he's contributing, but he's not a long-term.
Don't forget that fumble, George.
That's true. Yeah, but you know what, though? I know the fumble. People are pissed about that, Corey. You're right. But the fact is, they didn't score off those points. Like we stopped them, and I think they might have missed a field goal or win for. Like they didn't get any points off that turnover, so it's annoying. I can see the cynical look in your eyes, but it wasn't. I think he was a big factor in that game, in my opinion. I was happy with me. That's a meme right there. Love that, Corey. Thank you.
It was frustrating. I went back and watched that game today, and they held our defensive ends a lot in that game, and it didn't get called. It was frustrating, and I'm surprised that Coach didn't complain a little bit more on the sidelines about how much they did that. It affected certainly Chase Young, although it's nice to see that Chase is continuing to stack up games. They got a lot of good work out of the back end. I know you're happy about that, Adam. Some of those guys, Hill, James Smith-Williams, really being effective. They're going to have to pay one of those guys to stay too, right?
Yeah, I think it was James Smith running away, but after yesterday, now Tua's got 3 sacks on the season. It's a lot closer, but I think what James Smith-Williams gives you is he's the one that can slide in, especially in that single package. Even the 4-down lineman, he can slide inside, so they love that about him. I think his market value will be higher, so it's more likely to me, unless Tua rips off like 12, 13 sacks, I think he's going to be, a guy you definitely want to try to bring back. But, don't sleep on these draft picks that they got. Henry hasn't seen much action, but, Jones, I think that's going to be a work in progress, and, watch out for him as the year goes by. Because,
are you surprised that he's getting the work over Henry?
No. I think that Henry's more, pigeonholed into a role what he can do. I think what they love with Jones is, I think he can be effective standing up in the ground. I think even though he's, really slender build, you can move him inside on sub packages because he's got that length. So I just think they love the length. They love the potential of him. And, you're talking about 5 years at Louisiana, the guy, he knows football. Is he totally refined? No, but right now I think he's more refined over KJ Henry, and it is shown in camp and practice.
Corey, we talk all the time on this podcast about how, like, that they're forced into making what ends up being the right decision. They would try to put Benjamin St. Juste in that nickel all year long. They can't do it anymore. Finally, get him outside where he belongs. Get Danny Johnson inside, and they really performed, I think, the way that we think they will, because they were finally forced to put in the guys where they need to be. What did you see out of Danny Johnson and Benjamin St. Juste? And for that matter, all 3 corners, because they really played quite well.
Yeah, I'm surprised at Kendall. Like I always joke about Kendall and say he's probably the streakiest corner in the NFL because he'll have like 6 games of really good games, and then he'll have really bad games. So I'm hoping there's a trend here that trend gets broken and he just plays consistent throughout the season. I thought he played really well. Like you said, Crown Royal himself, our Canadian whiskey, St. Juste, he finally, God save the Queen and God bless St. Juste, because he went out there and I thought he put together one of his games and finally got an interception, like I said earlier, that wasn't pulled back because of a penalty or some just asinine situation for him, because he has the skills to be a top corner in this league. We've seen it. Like, people talk about him not getting interceptions. Well, Josh Norman didn't get interceptions, and they were all over him back in the in the last decade, pretty much. So I'm like, we can chill on that. And then Danny Johnson is a dude. He does, not to quote Chase too much, but if you put him out there, he gets stuff done. He's like he's the second or third tenured guy on the longest tenured guy on this squad for a reason. And I think you throw him out there. It took him a little bit of adjustment. He was kind of getting his lumps, but once he got his sea legs about him, he was good and he was locked down. But even to your point too, Doug, I think this is where a lot of people fall off with this defense and Simple Jack is the fact that he's always square hole round peg, and there's like, oh, okay, this guy makes sense right here. We're trying to give him an opportunity to go out here and succeed. It's the same thing with Khalid Hudson. You put him out there, he made a play when he got out there. The dude's been in the system for 3 years. You would think you'd be able to trust him and roll the dice. Sometimes I like a Toyota Corolla more than I like a Mustang because it's going to be more reliable, right? I think. So that's what I'm saying. So I'd rather be in the Corolla club sometimes than the Mustang club. And we got a lot of good Corollas right there. They might not be sexy looking, but they get the job done, man.
It's true.
George, speaking of having to force folks in, and I guess we take a second and tell the Lenos that we're thinking about them if they're watching. But again, Cornelius Lucas, a guy you talk about a guy who's been in the system for a long time, forced into work, and I thought he looked every bit the part of a starting tackle. Will he be forcing himself into the rotation, do you think, George?
That's interesting. So before I jump onto that one, I just want to jump with Corey really quickly about St. Juice. What I like about St. Juice is he shows resiliency, right? That's something that you really need from a corner. You need someone that's stubborn and has a short memory, like be a Goldfish, if you guys ever watched Ted Lasso before. Drake London had 12 targets, 9 catches for 125 yards. He was eating up Benjamin St. Juice at times during the game. He was doing a pretty good job. But the fact of the matter is St. Juice basically hunkered down. He kind of, reset himself. And eventually got an interception later on. He actually got during the 2-point conversion, a pass interference penalty, which I think is I understand the nature of the rule where you have to be looking back at the quarterback. We had good coverage there, but by the rules,
that was a terrible call.
Yeah, I mean, by the book, it was correct, but I don't like it. It was, it was a good football play. They should have done it, but he bounced back and they stopped him anyway. To answer your question, Cornelius Lucas did exactly what you asked him to. He has that Toyota Corolla mentality that Corey's kind of alluding to. He's not flashy. He went out there, did his job. We didn't hear his name, and that's actually a great thing for offensive linemen, right? There's supposed to be 5 people as part of a larger unit. I'm looking at PFF right now. We'll talk about that throughout the show. 51 snaps on the left tackle position, pass blocking grade of 89.4. Run block at 52.5, but he held his own and he stood out as a pass blocker. So I'm happy with that. He's the kind of guy you want as a swing tackle on your bench. Do I think he's going to overtake Charles Leno? Definitely not, because Ron's loyal to a fault, and he loves Charles Leno. He loves Thomas. He loves Leno. He loves those guys who are like locker room leaders that are kind of speak up in that leadership conference that he has. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. He has a leadership council that he reaches out to, gets feedback from, and Leno's on that. So I'd be surprised if he removed him from that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Lucas could outperform Wiley down the road. If we're starting to see
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know why did they feel the need to bring in a Wiley? I guess is my question. I think I would have thought that they'd have been happy with Lucas, because when given opportunities in the past, he's always taken advantage of them.
They must be wanting someone that's familiar with the system, or maybe someone that could maybe help coach the rest of the offensive line as to what EB likes to do. It's kind of like an extension of the field, like a coach on the field. And I think EB potentially wanted someone that he could kind of communicate and kind of like, you're my liaison to that offensive line room. So I think that's what he wanted. But it's tough because it's a pretty poor investment as we're seeing so far. And I think he has a pretty cumbersome contract. I think he's stuck here in next year. So we kind of have Andrew Wiley for a little while now. So we got to work around it.
And he wasn't, that's not to disparage Wiley, because frankly, he was not bad in this particular game. However, it feels like Cornelius is one of those guys, when given the opportunity, has been really good. Adam, they started working Rodriguez back into the running back rotation. You know that I'm a fan of his from Kentucky. I think he showed you a little bit about what he can do. I think more interesting than anything else, though, is that he's getting those reps. What did you like about that kind of rotation? They're keeping all 3 in.
I like that they haven't gone away from AG totally, because I think EB sees the talent there. It's just there's those concerns when you're trying to grind out, the short yardage, the important yards. Do you want him or a guy like Rodriguez, who although he's a rookie, he's shown he has no issues with with turnovers. And I think he's a bowling ball, like an extension from Robinson. So I think that's how they look at him. So when he comes into the game from Robinson, he can have similar production, move the pile. But he's actually a decent pass catcher. He wasn't asked to do it in Kentucky a lot too. So that's something I think, keep an eye on as the year goes by. But, with AG and Robinson, just such good pass catchers right now, I think there's no real need to do that. But what I liked about him is he's starting to get more involved in the offense. So, I think we start to get to that halfway point. I think, you'll start to see an uptick in his participation as well. But, man, I still want to see more from Robinson, because every time they put the ball in his hands, he makes something happen. So
I agree.
if he's not going to run the ball more, okay. But, man, just get the ball to him in space more. Like I was saying with AG, that's what I want to see. But I like Robinson getting the ball in space, because, he takes 2 or 3 guys to get him down. So, I really want to see that this week against the Giants, because I think this is a good matchup. Their DBs, linebackers, decent. They're not going to blow you away. I think they'll have a hard time bringing him down. So I really hope there's going to be more emphasis on utilizing him this week.
Just FYI, C-Rod, 5.8 yards per carry. That's pretty damn impressive.
He had those 3 big runs in the second half that basically got the first down by himself. Corey, they've been using that screen game effectively. They got the touchdown off of it, and also the one big one that got called back from the penalty. Probably need to see more of those, right?
That was one of the questions. I remember George and I were talking one day after the Buffalo game. We're like, where was the screen game, man?
Yeah.
In these losses, where has the screen game? It's like they go away from something that works for them, right? But yeah, in B-Rob, I didn't realize. People talk about, hey, he doesn't have breakaway speed. He is excellent in the screen game. He is sneaky fast, and you put that in that physicality. And don't forget, this is the second year in a row he scored against Atlanta via the pass. And he's bulldozed people going into the end zone. Well, and I mean, yeah, we need to see some more screen, especially this week coming up against the Giants, because what they lack for in their offensive department, their defense is pretty good. So you're going to have to keep them off balance. And I think that's going to be a good wrinkle in there, is to keep on using the screen game.
Corey, before you get out of here, I want to know, have you seen enough out of Howe to convince you he's the guy?
No, I have not. I am positive. I am hopeful for him. But I think right now, through 6 games, it's still, he's trending in that direction. Let's just say it that way. But I think there still needs to be a lot of things cleaned up, especially the way he holds on to the ball during the sacks. And I don't think that's always him. I think the offensive line has helped in that, kind of, right? Because that clock starts going in his head a little bit quicker. So he might make a brash decision a little bit quicker. But I think it's trending up, because kind of like what George said about St. Juice, right? The kid just keeps on attacking. When he turns the ball over, he attacks. He comes back stronger. He is what John Riggins said, step back and watch the phoenix rise from the ashes, right? Because he's a literal phoenix, because you might burn him on one drive. He's going to come right back at you. So he's got the intangibles, man. But I like I said, I don't know just yet, but I like what I see.
Do you like the fact that they have thrown him into the fire full force, kind of said, here it is. We're going to throw the offense dictates we're going to throw the ball 45 times, 50 times a game, and we're going to see what you got. There's one school of thought that says, hey, let's run the ball and protect the young guys some. Do you mind that they've just thrown him full force in here?
I don't mind that he's embraced the fire and walked into the fire. The fact that I do matter is that if he was a doctor, EB would be sued for malpractice, how he ignores the running game. You need to get the running game involved. Subject A yesterday, in the last 3-4 minutes of the game. Oh, you know what? We'll run the game. And then let's throw the ball. I'm like, dude, it's okay. We get it. Just get out here and try to win this game. Run the ball. Don't put Sam in those situations where he feels like he has to make this big play and then he turns the ball over or he takes a sack. Kind of like what we saw on that penultimate offensive drive, right? That's where I want it. That's, I respect Sam and what he's doing, but I think EB needs to realize too, he needs to do a little bit more to help his young quarterback and protect him. I do like how he moves the pocket sometimes, but we need to see more of that in these situations though. But yeah, him embracing the fire, good for Sam. I think the team could do better. The coaching staff can do better to support him, not the team, because I think his players, his teammates are doing that as well. So, yeah.
All right, my brother. Well, I appreciate the time you gave us today. We're going to hang out and talk a little bit more football here, but we appreciate you.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Take it easy, bro.
Adam, it's interesting there with what Corey said. Like, do you think, like, it used to be that you'd run this thing to set up the pass. They kind of now set up the pass to here, hold on.
Here, I'll get rid of the overlay. I got it. There you go.
Okay. It seems now, the new style is we now throw the ball, wait till they start backing up to cover the pass, and then we start running on them. Do you like the new style? Because that's certainly what we are doing here in Washington now.
I kind of was confused. So again, I always reach out to people, pick people's brains, anyone I can that'll answer my DMs and listen. But a lot of things I'm hearing is what EB is really trying to do is it's hard to understand for us, but he's trying to dictate an offensive script. So although it is pass heavy, it's just kind of how it's happening from what I'm understanding, because he is trying to set up situations where he can utilize more run, use more RPO, use more tempo, but the way his script works, he wants to, let's just say have one formation and be able to run 4 or 5 different things out of that formation. He believes that if he continues to do that, he can keep other teams off balance, because one thing he knows is there's tape out. So even once this game's finished, that there's tape onto the next. So it is kind of confusing, but I'm starting to understand, because it is frustrating. I want to see him run the ball more, but it's all about him trying to dictate his script, and he's continuing to do what Sam Howell likes. So unlike it may not seem like it, but from what I understand, him and Sam Howell literally work out what the best plays Sam Howell thinks that he runs best, and they're incorporating that. It's not that he's taking it under advisement. Those two are really, putting together the whole, game day package. So it's a frustrating scenario. I'm hoping that he's learning as he goes as far as EB. But I think you're going to start to see more dedication to the run. I really do. I think that a lot of it has to do with faith in the offensive line. He would never say that. Nobody's going to throw the offensive line under the bus. But I think with years past, even with shaky offensive line, we've had, a decent run balance line. I don't think that they're convinced that they have that. And I honestly, I keep looking at the tape in Gates. I think that, he's serviceable. But, I think at some point, I think Stromberg's going to be, coming, because I think he's a guy that offers you, more upside in the run game as their center. So I think that they're still tweaking all that. But I really think it has a lot to do with his faith and his confidence in the offensive line, as far as, he wants to dictate things. But I think he's concerned that, can he get 2 out of this, or, can this quick shot play give him, 3-4 yards on a slant comeback? So I think it has a lot to do with uncertainty.
The slants work to perfection on Sunday. I'd love, as well as the screens, I'd love to be seeing more of the slants, particularly with guys like Terry that can get that leverage so quickly. George, where are you on how 7-8 games into his career now?
I think Corey kind of brought, he kind of opened my eyes a little bit, kind of echo what I was thinking as well. I like Sam Howell. I see the potential in him. I think
he's putting up gaudy numbers.
He's putting up gaudy numbers, but this league, you put up gaudy numbers. You see Brock Purdy week to week. You see other quarterbacks throughout the week putting up these Super Bowl Madden numbers. Oh man, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. But no, it's a passing league. It's a league where people are distributing the ball. There's a lot of yards after catch. Defensive rules are basically favoring the offense now. It's a lot of things have changed over time. What I do like about Howell is that he offers a little bit of everything, right? I like his mobility. I like his toughness. I like his resiliency. I think he has touch on the ball. I also think he has zip on the ball. I think there's a lot of good things there. Yes, he does hold on to the ball that often, but I don't think that's not fixable. I think you can fix it over time, especially as you become more used to the system and understand things. We always kind of touch about it on this podcast about Eric Bieniemy said sometimes it's the first time Sam Howell's ever seen these concepts and he's seen these these coverages against him. He's trying to figure things out. So as he kind of like builds his Rolodex up and kind of builds his files up, he's going to become more quicker. He's going to process faster. So I do like it. My biggest concern with Howell is this longevity. I just hope he can stay healthy because just getting hit week after week is something that I'm concerned about. And I just don't want to I think he's tough. I think if he throws interceptions, he'll bounce back. I'm not worried about his mental capabilities. I'm more worried about his physical capabilities. I think he get banged up a little bit. The question is, I guess the one thing I will monitor, I don't know how you guys feel, is he's good. I think he's solid. Is he going to be elite? Is he the kind of guy that's going to get us to a Super Bowl? That's our ultimate goal. And that's something we have to kind of watch moving forward. Because I do think he's a solid quarterback. Is he solid top 10 to 15 or is he top 15 to 20? We have no idea where he is yet. I want to see how that kind of unravels as the year goes on.
What do you think? What do you think that potential looks like, Adam? Because I mean, if you take away, to me, if you take away the forced mistakes, right, like all the sacks that he's taken, and I know you guys rewatch it just like I do. A lot of those sacks are on him. They've got to get the ball out. He takes sacks at the worst time. I mean, the end of that first half there, where he just stumbles into defenders, is frustrating. But if you take those things, I mean, clean that up, the rest of his game looks pretty good to me, Adam.
Man, I that's what I'm saying. I'm still on the fence. Going to give some time, but on his potential alone, and I've been saying this since I watched him at North Carolina since 2018. He's doing some of this. He still has some of those bad habits, but I've seen some people say, well, if he can't clean it up since college, he's not going to clean up. But it's totally different in the NFL. Like you said, he's seeing looks that he's never seen. So personally, I have faith. If I can say one thing about watching Robert Griffin. When that guy took a hit, I swear it's called the ambulance, man. It was like
100%.
every time. This guy, it's like I don't like the sacks, and it's not a good trend, but he's not taking a lot of those big blows that you're like, is he going to get up from them? But I don't know if he can sustain too much more of that. But in saying that, I think he's a smart kid, and I think the more tape he watches, that internal clock is going to get better because he's going to see, where it's coming from, times that he needs to really navigate, step up, and slide in the pocket. Because, he's already telling you every week on things that he's looking to work on. He's talking about sliding after the run. We saw him do that. So each week, I think there's going to be more things. But I'm just waiting for that game. He had 3 touchdowns today against Atlanta, but only 150 yards. I'm waiting for that game. Just that performance where he looks like he's in the zone. And honestly, I'm just getting that feeling it's going to be this week against the Giants. I think, I love it. They're a good team. I never sleep on the Giants because they always have watched his number, but I just get that feeling this is the week coming off this game that he's just really going to put it all together. Because I think Giants, they're just in a downward slide right now. I don't think it's just Daniel Jones. I think it's all around within the locker room, just everything that I'm hearing about their team. And I think this is the week that, he really goes wild and puts it all together. So I think in a couple weeks, I think we're going to be saying, we're set. We don't have to look at quarterback in the next draft. But right now, we're not there yet. But again, I think we're talking about November. I think a lot of us are going to be saying, at least we don't have to worry about that position going into the draft. I really do.
He called that design run for Howell to pick up the first down. I thought the play calling yesterday was really good by Bieniemy. Those touchdowns, I mean, those were smartly
wide open.
Good call. They were, all of them. And I think he's starting to show off a little bit, George. I think we're starting to see kind of what maybe we had envisioned when he got there more. We had already talked about Samuel and all the motion. I don't have the numbers in front of me, George. You might, but it felt like they ran a ton more motion yesterday than they had. It was interesting. When I talked with Hoffman and Paulson on Friday about why you don't run that motion every single time. Mm-hmm. They said, well, sometimes that can be frustrating and confusing for the quarterback because it adds an extra layer to what he's got to go on too. I think people just tend to say, oh, well, the motion gives you the keys on defense, so you just run it every time. Well, it's still another wrinkle, but you can see, George, that when they use it, it's effective.
So, yeah, I like what you're saying about that. I like Eric Bieniemy a lot. I think we have to remember that this whole year is a good trial and error period. We're trying to figure things out. Eric Bieniemy, people say he didn't call plays in the Chiefs. We have no idea how much input he actually did have, and during a game-to-game play calling as well. So he's still feeling it out. And honestly, I don't know about you guys. I'll speak for myself. I get excited every week because I feel like he does. There is upside to the offense. Like there is some upside. There's like some unlimited potential we could potentially hit. Like to Adam's point, Sam Howell is starting to put it together. Last week he had 388 yards. Granted, we're playing from behind, had to kind of there's skew with passing, but then we had 3 touchdown passes this week. Would you be surprised if Howell had a 300-yard game and 3 touchdown game? I wouldn't. I think it's on the cusp. I think it's coming around the corner, so I can see that. Does things need to be refined? Sure, but I think that's where continuity comes into play. That's where I do want Eric Bieniemy to stay with Howell. I want him to work with him. Like we don't know what the future is going to hold next year, but I think I'll be disappointed if they blew it all up. Like I'm not necessarily a super fan of like Rivera. I could see some new blood, new leadership in regard to that. Del Rio, I'm kind of over Del Rio, to be honest with you. I kind of want some new perspective on defense because I feel like he's not maximizing the talents there. But I think I would like to see Eric Bieniemy, and whoever takes over offensive coordinator, if he becomes head coach, to kind of keep that continuity, kind of build up Howell, because that's how you develop a good quarterback. You basically give them time. You have them throw the ball a lot, as we talked about with Nick, and we talked about in our show. And he's basically just kind of like he's building his capacity. He's building up that Rolodex. And if you kind of have that vision next year, like I know on this play I'm going to do this, or let's audible, there's chemistry there. That's a good, powerful thing. So that's what I want to happen. So I'm giving Eric Bieniemy this year. I'm giving Sam Howell this year. We're going to see how the whole year unfolds.
You mentioned that, George. It'll be interesting. There could be a lot of new pieces on defense next year, depending on which way they want to go. We know Curl has not gotten a new contract. We know there are 2-3 different defensive linemen that affect the game. They get major playing time that may or may not be here again. The defense coordinator and the entire defensive staff could be different next year. So it's like,
pose a question when you're done, Doug?
Do it right now.
Yeah. So thinking of which, this kind of crossed my mind when I was kind of going over the defense, right? Basically how bad they looked last week against the Bears. Obviously we were all self-reflecting about that, right? My thought was this, right? We have money going into next year, and we basically have, Chase Young is a potential free agent, Cam Curl's a potential free agent, Montez Sweat, all these like big names we kind of adore, we kind of grow attachment to them because we know these people and we watch them for years, right? However, like my question to you guys is it a worthy investment to keep investing into this defense if they're not actually producing on a week-to-week basis? They're giving up 30 points a game, 40 points a game. They're not necessarily dominating like they're supposed to. Like we like these players. Is it prudent to invest and pay for them? Or do you guys believe that, they are talented, but the coaching is kind of missing the opportunity? Where do you guys both stand on that?
I'll say this before I go over to Adam. I think that if this was year 2, let's say, of the defense, and you had a Cam Curl, that you knew that at least that defensive coordinator was going to be there for 2 or 3 more years, and they really liked Cam Curl, I think he would have already been paid by now. But I think the notion that there could be wholesale changes and maybe the new guy won't see Cam the same way Del Rio and Ron do. Now, I think that's probably not true, right? Like I think there's probably lots of different defensive coordinators that see what he does. And by the way, Cam had an excellent game yesterday and kind of reminded you of what he is there for. But I think that's part of the reason why you're not seeing guys, at least on defense, getting paid, because who's going to be running the defense and what do they think of these guys?
True.
Because I think most defensive coordinators will like them, don't you, Adam? I mean, these are more than just serviceable pieces we're talking about here. Some of these guys are all-pro caliber players. It also wouldn't surprise me if they kept one premier D end and then tried to figure out a way to keep James Smith-Williams and did it that way instead of paying. We keep talking about how do we keep both these premier ends. Maybe we keep one and then find a way to keep a James Smith-Williams at him.
Yeah, I really think at the end, when it comes down to it, unless Curl just really, shits the pot, I think to me, that's a guy that it's not quite as easy to, find a guy that's, quite as position flexible, because, strong safety, free safety, cover the slot, cover linebackers. You compare him to,
what they weak side linebacker in the 43 yesterday.
Right. And you compare, what Sweat can do and Chase Young, great athletes, no doubt about it. But considering they've already, I really believe ownership's going to look. They've already got Payne and Allen locked down, a lot of money. Are they going to give another contract like that to an end? I don't think it's going to happen. I think unless Sweat or Young come out
George,
with
what's
15
left on John Allen's contract, real quick?
I'll look it up while you guys are
yeah,
talking. Go
you
ahead.
know, unless one of those guys totally goes off, 2-3 sacks a game, here, I don't think either of them is going to be back. I think that ownership is going to look. You made a perfect example. James Smith-Williams. That's a wholesale signing. They could bring him back, Casey Tuhill, and then go into the draft and go into day 3. These are where you can find legit pass rushers that more situational. And also, do they like Jones? So I think it's going to come down to the checkbook when it where the checks and balances are going. What position they're going to see it. It's awfully lopsided from the defense to the offense, and I think that anybody's going to know that they need to really, no matter what's going to happen, they're going to have to upgrade this offensive line. That's going to take money. That's going to take draft capital.
Yeah.
So I think the best case scenario is Sam Howell lets he's the guy. You don't have to go in the first round with that. Then you can really focus on that first round. Everyone's going to talk about tackle, but I've been seeing it. Guys making the rounds talking about Georgia today. That tight end. That's the kind of guy that can really turn a guy like Sam Howell to a really good quarterback to a great quarterback. So I think if you can go into the draft,
devastated for him and the ankle.
Yeah, Doug
I really
knows
thought
about
maybe it was going to be like a low ankle or that mid sprain, and when it came out high ankle, I was like, oh, devastated for him as a football fan, and obviously my affinity for the Bulldogs. I'm sad that we won't see him in the silver britches anymore. Did you find that contract for John Allen?
I did. So looking at Jonathan Allen, he has 2 more years remaining on his contract, has a cap number of 21.5 in 2024, 23 million in 2025. It looks
I'm
like
assuming they have the option for the second year, or both of those are guaranteed.
So I got to double check that. I'm looking at it seems like there's some dead money and there's some cap savings. Like for me, the potential best out would be in 2025,
right,
because he would have a dead money hit of 6 million with a cap saving of 17 million. So it's
virtually a 2-year deal from now on.
Yeah, it's pretty much a 2-year deal from now on. He's 28 now. He'll be 30 by the end of the contract. Next year in 2024, if they decide to go a different direction with him, it's split. It'd basically be a $12 million dead cap, $9 million free savings, so a cap savings there. So I think he'll probably be here for next year. Then 2025, depending on his production, they'll probably they might look a different direction.
And it's interesting also because when we're projecting these things to the future, everybody is all excited about we've got Sam Howell on this rookie deal, and that's the cheat code. Well, he won the first round, or you're on 5th round option. Like you got to know, because next year you got to figure out whether you got to pay this guy. So like that window of the rookie contract for him, extremely short. Like, it's basically next year, and then you've got to figure out what you got to pay him. So just throwing that out there, because I think people think, oh, we've got the rookie contract on a rookie deal, we're set for a whole bunch of time. Not necessarily true. It's also interesting that we won't get a chance to see some of these guys like KJ Henry. They need to win now, and I totally get that. And so you don't really have the option or the luxury of seeing what these guys got. I mean, you've already seen what they did with Forbes. I'm curious to see how long it is before they go back to Forbes. They might not go back to Forbes this season. I think that's a real possibility.
And we brought up in our chat, I honestly think that this is more like a teachable moment. I don't think it's because I think they're trying to send a message to Forbes. I'm not trying to be tough on it or anything like that, but I think he will get better. I think he does have physical talent, but I think they wanted him to kind of grow and have baptism by fire. They were disappointed by what they saw. And I guess I think they're also telling him this is what we want to see, in regard to effort. I think it's coverage. There's some lapses there, but I think the tackling effort, putting a nose into it, being a stout run defender. I'm seeing a little bit of a lack of effort there. And people that I'm listening to and hearing from, Logan Paulson and people that I respect a lot, are saying that. They're like, you know what? I think the coaches are kind of putting that in his ear and it's not being responded well. So I think that's something we need to see. Emmanuel Forbes, they're checking him right now. I'm like, if you want to be an active part of our defense, you got to be, 100% going all out. We got you undersized, thinking you would be a super aggressive tackler, but you're not showing that right now. You've been kind of passive in your tackling. So I think tackling and aggressiveness is kind of what they're worried about right now.
They beat a team that I think they were supposed to beat. I'm sure the Falcons and the Falcons fans think they lost to a team that they should have beat. they are not, the Falcons are not world beaters. So on one hand, we need to remember that. On the other hand, it's important to appreciate all these wins every week. You know, you only play 17 of them. We'll take all the wins no matter how they come. But Adam, before we play this Giants game, what is one thing that you think they've got to clean up if they want to get it to 2 in a row?
I think it's more just you're seeing them just a step behind. You know, even Chase Young with all the pressures not to sack, it's just getting home. You know, that's what I want to see, because I really do think that they're that close to being, you know, a 5+ sack team a game, because they're getting there to just not getting home. So I just want to see, you know, that extra push. You know, again, you can blame it on the holding calls because there was a ton of those on the ends. But man, you know, great players. You know, we've seen in the past. You know, with Dexter Manley, Charles Mann. You know, Lawrence Taylor. We've seen those guys got held every play. So you know, it's about getting home no matter what's going on. So that's what I want to see. You know, against the Giants. You know, is it going to be Daniel Jones? I don't think they've even made a final call on that, or it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. But
I bet you it's Tyrod.
Yeah, I'm with you though. Honestly, I think that Tyrod Taylor can probably do more. He's just more savvy. I think Daniel Jones is going to be trying to do too much. So I'd rather honestly face Daniel Jones, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. Always competitive in the NFC East. I think it'll be close. But yeah, man, if they can just get home, and I want to see Del Rio continue to mix it up, because I think Jamin Davis, he's another guy. We talk about Sam Howell. I think he's on the cusp of really blowing up. I think he needs more opportunities to attack be a pass rusher. And I think, you know, if you can limit him in coverage, not all the time, but he does have his moments. But I think, man, just let him attack the passer, because he's just so fast that's what, you know, you can get at him. So I hope to see that more as well.
All right, fellas. Well, this has been another great episode, and I appreciate the time today. And we'll see you again next Monday.
Peace.
Peace.